The small town of Grimwood had always been quiet, nestled between dense forests and a winding river. But there was one place no one dared to visit, the abandoned comedy club at the edge of town, Chuckles. It had been closed for over 20 years, ever since the night its most popular comedian, Lenny Smiles, vanished mid-performance. The only thing left behind was a single microphone, still standing in the center of the stage, and a chilling rumor. Anyone who entered the club could hear the sound of Lenny's laughter echoing faintly through the walls. One evening, a group of 4 college friends, Jake, Emma, Lisa, and Sam, dared each other to spend the night inside Chuckles. Armed with flashlights, a camera, and their own bravado, they laughed off the warnings from the locals. "What's so scary about an old joke shop?" Jake quipped, earning a nervous chuckle from Lisa. As they stepped inside, the air grew heavy. The dusty stage, broken chairs, and tattered posters of long-forgotten performers were frozen in time. Emma, the skeptic of the group, decided to test the so-called haunting. She grabbed the old microphone and spoke into it. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the funniest nightmare of your life." The microphone crackled to life, and then nothing. They laughed uneasily, until a faint giggle echoed from somewhere in the darkness. It wasn't any of them. "Did you hear that?" Sam whispered, gripping his flashlight tighter. The giggle turned into a full-throated laugh, as if an audience of ghosts was finding the situation hilarious. Then, as they turned to leave, the club door slammed shut, locking them inside. A spotlight flickered on, illuminating the stage. A shadowy figure stood there, holding a mic. "Let's give them a show they'll never forget," the voice rasped, followed by a distorted laugh that sent shivers down their spines. The friends stood frozen in terror as the sound of applause erupted, but there was no one in the audience. The air inside the Chuckles Comedy Club was thick with tension, the laughter of something unseen echoing eerily around them. The group of friends stood frozen, eyes wide with disbelief. Emma gripped the microphone, her heart racing. "What the heck is going on?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Just as she turned to look for a way out, the door behind them slammed shut with a deafening bang. Sam rushed to the door, trying to open it, but it was locked tight. "It's not budging," he said, panic creeping into his voice. The light above them flickered again, and the unsettling laughter echoed louder, now joined by faint clapping as though the club was filled with an invisible audience. The group turned to the stage. The figure that had appeared before them stood motionless under the spotlight. It was just a shadow, a mere silhouette. No one could tell if it was a person or something else entirely. Lenny Smiles, the comedian who disappeared all those years ago, was rumored to have had a strange, otherworldly sense of humor. But this was something else. Suddenly, the shadowy figure lifted the microphone, and in a distorted voice it spoke. "You wanted a show, didn't you? Let's see how long you can laugh now." With that, the room plunged into complete darkness. For a moment, there was silence. Then the sound of a loud, shrill laugh broke through the quiet, followed by the distinct sound of footsteps approaching them. Jake, his heart pounding, grabbed the nearest chair and hurled it toward the stage, hoping to knock over the figure. But just as the chair flew through the air, it passed right through the shadow like it wasn't even there. The friends watched in horror as the shadow began to take form, becoming a grotesque, twisted version of the comedian Lenny Smiles. His face was distorted in a manic grin, his eyes glowing unnaturally bright. "You're not leaving," Lenny's voice boomed. "You're part of the show now." The air grew even colder, and the sound of 1,000 voices laughing, mocking, jeering filled the room. The group scrambled, their flashlights flickering as they searched for a way out, but every door they tried led them back to the same spot. They were trapped in the club, now unwilling participants in a terrifying, supernatural performance. As Lenny's laughter echoed in their ears, they realized the horrifying truth. Once you entered Chuckles, you became the punchline. The applause ceased as abruptly as it had begun, leaving an oppressive silence in its wake. Emma clung to Jake's arm, her trembling hand barely steady. "This can't be real," she muttered, her voice barely audible over her racing heartbeat. Before anyone could respond, the spotlight on the stage began to move, scanning the empty room as if searching for something or someone. It finally stopped, landing on Sam. The intense beam blinded him momentarily, and he stumbled backward. A deep, guttural chuckle rumbled through the club, sending shivers down their spines. "Looks like we have a volunteer," the distorted voice called out. The shadowy figure on stage raised a hand, and the microphone crackled with static. The figure's grin seemed to stretch wider, impossibly so, as if it were feeding on their fear. Jake stepped forward, holding a broken chair leg as a makeshift weapon. "Stay back!" he shouted, his voice shaking but defiant. The figure tilted its head, amused by the futile display of bravery. The laughter returned, louder this time, echoing off the walls and growing in intensity. But it wasn't coming from the stage, it was all around them. The sound felt alive, pressing in on them, suffocating and relentless. Sam's flashlight flickered and then died, plunging them into near-total darkness, save for the spotlight's harsh glow. The group huddled together, their breaths shallow and quick. Suddenly, the tables and chairs in the club began to scrape across the floor as if pushed by unseen hands. The sound was deafening, chaotic. The stage curtain fluttered despite the lack of any breeze, revealing what looked like an old, weathered sign that read, "Laugh till you drop." Emma screamed as a ghostly hand appeared out of the darkness, reaching for her shoulder. She swatted at it, only to find her hand passing through empty air. The laughter escalated, now a cacophony of voices overlapping, each one more deranged than the last. From the stage, the figure raised its microphone once more. "Welcome to the headliner act," it announced. "And tonight's punchline is you." The air inside Chuckles was now suffocating. The laughter relentless, mocking, otherworldly wrapped around the friends like a noose, tightening with every passing second. Jake staggered backward, gripping his makeshift weapon as the spotlight snapped off. The club was pitch dark again, except for the faint glow of Lenny's distorted grin still visible on the stage. Sam clutched Emma's arm, his voice trembling. "We need to move. Now." But every step felt like wading through molasses. The air was thick, cold, and unnaturally heavy, as though the building itself was alive, trapping them inside. Suddenly, a series of old, yellowed comedy posters appeared on the walls. They hadn't been there before. Each one displayed a distorted version of the friends' faces, their expressions frozen in screams of terror, with exaggerated captions like, "A show to die for," and "The night they couldn't stop laughing." Lisa let out a choked sob. "This isn't real! This can't be real!" Her voice broke as the posters seemed to ripple, their printed images moving, grinning at the group. The stage curtain began to move again, though no breeze stirred. Slowly it pulled back, revealing a new, darker space beyond. A dim red glow emanated from the opening, and faint silhouettes of chairs, tables, and ghostly figures began to appear inside. The friends froze, realizing it wasn't an empty room, it was another audience. Rows of shadowy figures sat motionless, their heads turned toward the stage. Their eyes, or what should have been eyes, glowed faintly red, and their hands twitched, ready to clap. "Don't look at them," Emma whispered, her voice trembling as she tried to pull Lisa away. "Just don't look." But Jake, driven by desperation or rage, shouted, "Enough!" and charged at the stage, swinging his broken chair leg at the grinning figure. The sound of splintering wood echoed through the club as the weapon hit the microphone stand, but the figure didn't flinch. Instead, it dissolved into a swarm of black mist, swirling around Jake before reforming behind him. "Fools," the figure rasped, its voice reverberating. "The show always goes on." Jake was hurled backward by an unseen force, landing hard on the floor. The laughter grew louder, now a deafening roar, as the shadowy audience began to clap in unison, their ghostly hands creating a thunderous, unnatural sound. The glowing sign above the stage flickered back to life, its message now reading, "The curtain never falls." And as the curtain began to close once more, it wasn't just the room growing darker, it was the friends themselves, their forms beginning to fade, as though they were being absorbed into the stage's sinister glow. "Jake!" Emma screamed, reaching out, but her hand passed through him as though he were no longer solid. The applause reached a fever pitch, and in that moment Emma realized they weren't the audience. They were becoming part of the act,